production. My biology studied for science prodigies. My apologies, flows and rhymes can be quite astonishing. I've been polishing every line, cause this writer's novel is published, so why...
What is going on, everybody? Alphabyte here. Today we're going to be checking out a brand new song. It dropped an hour ago by Dax. It is called To Be a Man. I don't know a lot about Dax. I do listen to most of the songs he drops if it's something I notice. Excuse me. Today I did have a different song planned to react to, but when I was looking at my subscriptions, I noticed he had a brand new song. So what we're going to do is let the song play through. We might pause just so I can speak on something if something really hits home, or if the flow really gets me, or if I got to make some sort of comment about the song or the production. I will do that, but for the most part, we're just going to let it play through, and then I'll run it back all the way, and I'll try to break it down to the best of my ability, because that's what we do around here. I love breaking down the lyrics. I like talking about what it means to me, what I think the artist is trying to, portray. But let's get right into it.
I can't hide myself. I don't expect you to understand. I just hope I can explain what it's like to be a man. It's a lonely road, and they don't care about what you know. It's not about how you feel, but what you provide inside that home. Yeah, I know this life can really beat you down. You wanna scream, but you won't make a sound. Got so much weight that you've been holding, but won't show any emotion. As a man that goes unspoken, that we can't cry when life gets hard. Unconditional loves for women, children, and dogs. We know that we just have to play our parts, and don't nobody give a damn about our broken hearts. Yeah, as a man we gotta pave our way. Our only function is to work and slave. There's no respect for you if you ain't paid. You're disregarded as a human and you can't complain. And if you ever make it up and actually reach that place and find a woman that you love and give her your last name, you'll feel the things that you provide is only why she stays. And when you try to explain, you'll say, I can't hide myself. I don't expect you to understand. I just hope I can explain what it's like to be a man. It's a lonely road, and they don't care about what you know. It's not about how you feel, but what you provide inside that home. Don't give up, keep fighting. As a man, our sun is our horizon, and our father's actions play a role, and we end up like them. So they can't let us see them hurt, cause we'll embody what they do and start a generational curse. No wonder most men are so depressed, all the things that they can't express. They go to war, get thrown on the shelf, then go back to war with their mental health, then grab that body.
Ooh, man, I've been getting goosebumps for this whole song, but I had to stop when he mentioned men go to war and then get thrown on the shelves. Like, that's fucking deep. That shit hurts. It is the truth. We got all these soldiers that are men, and a lot of them end up dead, and they're just a picture frame on a bookshelf.
Do and start a generational curse. No wonder most men are so depressed, all the things that they can't express. They go to war, get thrown on the shelf, then go back to war with their mental health, then grab that bottle and ask for help, try to pull themselves out of hell, then fall back down and then realize that they're gonna have to do it themselves. It's the circle of life. As a man you provide, they don't know what you're worth till the day that you die, and that's when they start crying. Then move on to a man to confide in. That's why we feel we can't hide ourselves. We don't expect you to understand. We just hope we can explain what it's like to be a man. It's a lonely road, and you don't care about what we know. It's not about about how we feel, but what we provide inside that home. Inside that home. That home. It's not about how we feel, but what we provide inside that home. Inside that home.
Whew. I tell you what, I had no idea that this is what that song was going to be about, man. In terms of content, I mean, it's the song's called "To Be a Man," of course. But yeah, I didn't know what kind of song we were going to get. I loved the very slow delivery, incredibly powerful message. Excuse me. A lot of Dax music for sure about men, or not. It's about mental health in general. But for him to target men's mental health and just really narrow down the perspective, the way he did it was incredibly original. I liked everything about this song. The instrumental was fucking beautiful. I got goosebumps throughout this entire song. I see he has the lyrics below, so we'll probably take a look at those lyrics just to see if there's anything I don't catch or I can't understand completely, or try to look at more of the stanza for the verse for more context to see what he's trying to talk about. If we need them, they're good for help. But yeah, man, I love this song a lot. This caught me off guard. Also put me in my feels like crazy, for personal reasons. But man, I was not expecting this song. I'm so glad I decided to listen to this and react to this. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to break it down piece by piece. Expect a long reaction. I got long reactions. If you don't know how I react, I apologize in advance. That's why I started doing this thing at the beginning of my videos where I'll just listen to the song all the way through. I only stopped once to comment during that initial playthrough because I didn't want to stop the song. I didn't want to stop it. I was completely captured. I was in the moment like crazy. But yeah, let's get right into this.
I can't hide myself. I don't expect you to understand. I just hope I can explain what it's like to be a man. It's a lonely road, and they don't care about what you know. It's not about how you...
And the video is awesome too, because it does a really good job of showing you some insight on like just that older gentleman sitting in the truck. He was struggling, right? He was having issues. He was sad. He was depressed. He could have had a long day at work. He could just be exhausted, whatever the case may be. But he had to get this moment to kind of collect himself. But before he's collecting himself, he's allowing the walls to be dropped, and he's in a state of vulnerability, and he's letting himself feel his feelings before he goes in and hugs his family and sees his family and puts on that dad face, puts on that dad mask. He puts on those pair of boots that makes him the father that he is. And that's a really beautiful example of what men do. You know what I mean? They provide, they spend a long day at work. It could be anywhere from 8 to 16 hours, probably even more. And they're drained. They have a plethora of issues for why they're physically or mentally exhausted. And they break down for a moment, but it's only going to be for a moment, because you know, if you're a father, you're a father, you're a husband, you're a provider, you wear many hats, right? So yeah, I think it was beautiful for them to include that, him just sitting in the truck before he goes inside to gather himself. And you can even tell when he's hugging his kid, like he's kind of struggling a little bit, like he's struggling between not letting anybody see him basically being vulnerable, but he's putting on that face, and that he's trying to be strong so he can be, you know, a good father to his children and a great husband to his wife. The first few lyrics in the song are really cool. He's talking about how he can't hide himself. He doesn't want to basically be put in a position to where he has to show your vulnerabilities and show that you're emotional, all this. But he's gonna try to show you just a little bit of insight of what it's like to be a man. These first few lyrics were really powerful. I like it a lot. Also, this is such a older way of thinking, but very much so prominent in today's world, because I mean, you got young people, you got middle-aged people, and you got older people. Young people are only 1/3 of that demographic, right? You got middle-aged people who were raised by the older people, so they're gonna kind of have more of a direct tradition in terms of how they carry themselves because of what they saw as a strong or a father figure. And maybe some of those middle-aged folk, when they have their children, they kind of determine whether they want to exude all of those traits and let their, and they Dax touched on this part as well later on in the song, where he's like, well, I learned it from my dad, and now that I'm a dad, I gotta, pick and choose what parts of my dad that were ingrained in me that I want to ingrain into my child.
They don't care about what you know. It's not about how you feel, but what you provide inside that home. Yeah, I know this life can really beat you down. You wanna scream, but you won't make a sound.
The writing's really good in this. He's got really subtle internal rhymings. Dax has always been a brilliant writer, always has, always will be. But he also says it's not about what you know, it's about what you provide for what's inside your home, right? It doesn't matter about, basically put all of this stuff to the side, and just all that matters is what you're able to provide for your family, what you're able to provide for whatever is in your home. And it's painful, but it's the truth. And at the end of the day, it's kind of like I don't know the right word, but not oxymoron, but it's interesting how even as a man, right, I'm able to identify that it's a big goal and it's a very fulfilling thing to be able to provide, but at the cost of, just sacrifice, right? You just sacrifice time with family, time with friends. You sacrifice your physicality, your mental health. There's a lot of sacrifice that's put on the line, but it's just kind of funny how one of the biggest goals a lot of us men have is to just be able to provide, but it comes at a sacrifice.
Got so much weight that you've been holding, but won't show any emotion. As a man that goes unspoken, now we can't cry when life gets hard. Unconditional loves for women, children, and dogs.
I thought that line was really interesting. I almost paused it on the initial playthrough. How he talks about unconditional love for women, children, and dogs. And he nails it right on the head. I mean, let's be real. Like, it's no joke, right? It's not for nothing when there's an emergency, whether it's a fire in a building or like there's a shooting or whatever the case may be. You start with the women and the children. You evacuate the women and the children, right? They're the future. They're the future. That a mother is. You could go back and forth all day. What's more important? And the truth of the matter is that a father is just as important as a mother when you're raising a child. But a mother a mother carries a child and gives birth to a child, and a relationship between a mother and a child is exactly what that is. There's nothing else that compares to it. A relationship between a father and a child, same thing, nothing compares to it. However, there's just a bit of a difference. We're not the one carrying the children. We're not the one birthing the children. We're there to support the mother who's doing those things. But the dog part, that's called man's best friend for a reason. Humans have such a strong emotional attachment, spiritual attachment to canines, and we've been partners with dogs for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. But it is unconditional love for those three things, right? For children, women, and dogs. Before that, he talks about how you've basically been bottling up all this emotion, and you want to scream when life is getting you down, but you can't make a peep or even a single sound because you don't want to let people know that you're capable of crying, or you don't want to be seen as crying because it's a sign of weakness. The list goes on and on.
When life gets hard, unconditional unconditional lust for women, children, and dogs. We know that we just have to play our parts, and don't nobody give a damn about our broken hearts. Yeah, as a man we gotta pave our way. Our only function is to work and slave. There's no respect for you if.
So I'm pretty sure this is definitely a part where I'd like to look at the lyrics. Our only part or only place, whatever, is to work and slave. Yeah, okay, that's it. That is what it's, yeah. So there's a term like you slave away at something. It goes without saying, right? Like you fucking, I slaved over the stove, right? You spent hours and hours. You spent a lot of time working over the stove, cooking, doing whatever. So our only function is to work and slave. So, I mean, he's kind of saying the same thing twice, saying work and slave, because there's no difference. But slave, it adds more of an emphasis to describe the effort and the quality and quantity of time of work that you're putting in. But also, he keeps the rhyme going, because as a man, we got to pave our way. Our only function is to work and slave. There's no respect for you if you ain't paid. So, I mean, it makes sense from a writer's perspective, but as a listener, I had to verify. I'm going to like this real quick. I had to verify that is exactly what he's saying. But yeah, honestly, like as a job or as a man, that's a part of your job to pave your own way. Like you got to pave your own way so you can uphold your own standards for yourself. And that way you're a good image to your children, and you're able to find a wife or a partner, whatever the case may be, that, has basically trust in that you have good character and they can trust you that you'll support and take care of the family in every possible way that you can.
As a man, we gotta pave our way. Our only function is to work and slave. There's no respect for you if you ain't paid. You're disregarded as a human and you can't complain. And if you ever make it up and actually reach that place.
And I mean, that is true. That is very true. You could be very passionate about what you're doing, and if you don't make a lot of money, the way you get looked at, it's not going to be the same if you were making a lot of money doing something that you hated. But that's where individuality comes into play. And if you can do something that you love that doesn't feel like work, that's kind of like where we are today, and where there's guidance, not from everybody, but for the dreamers, right? For the dreamers, like I'm a dreamer. I'm for sure a dreamer. I make music. I love music. That's something I'm going to do for the rest of my life, and it doesn't feel like work. And it's not making a lot of money, you know what I'm saying? But I'm doing it because I love it. I'm doing it because I love it. But I'm sure from, if I go to my 10-year high school reunion next year, if that's a thing, I don't know, and people ask me what I'm doing, and I tell them I'm doing music, like it's probably going to be pretty obvious that there's going to be some people that just kind of like, oh, good for you. Like, I'm sure that's, reliable. And then there's the people you're close with that are just like fucking super happy for you and they're thrilled for you. So it's all about perspective, 100%. And then he goes into how you can't even complain about it. You know what I mean? You gotta just fucking deal with what you're dealt with. Like, if you got cards, you gotta deal the hand you're dealt. You gotta play those cards. You gotta be able to draw a new card from the deck on your own. You can't complain about what you have. You can't complain about the pay that you get. You just gotta deal with what you got. You're not allowed to complain as a man. At least that's kind of my interpretation of this. Obviously, I could be wrong. Music is subjective. But to me, this is very direct. So that's how it hits me when I hear this stuff.
Can't complain, and if you ever make it up and actually reach that place and find a woman that you love and give her your last name, you'll feel the things that you provide is only why she stays. And when you try to explain, you'll say I can't.
Yeah, honestly, I've never been married, but I imagine that is probably gonna be something I feel one day. If I'm like he's saying, if I'm lucky enough to find a woman and give her my last name, I feel like that everything I'll provide, I'll only get that sense of fulfillment while I'm looking at her and I'm staring at her. I'm gonna make sure that that's what he's saying, because I'm pretty curious. Last name, if she stays, not when you just stare at her. Okay, because at that moment in the video they were looking at each other. So And if you ever make it up and actually reach that place and find a woman that you love and give her your last name, you'll feel the things that you provide is only why she stays. So a totally different meaning. And this is exactly why I like to look at the lyrics. You know, it's a bitter thing. It's a bitter thing. You feel as though the only reason why she's with you is because of what you're able to provide. And it's a very conflicting feeling, because that's an important factor when you're making a decision on who you're going to spend the rest of your life with. What is their level of providing? How much can they support you? How much can they support the family you guys are going to create with each other? But that can't be the sole reason. That can't be, it's a factor. It can't be the sole reason. Whoever you fall in love with, it's got to be undeniable that you guys are meant for each other. That's how I feel. So yeah, I'm glad we looked at those lyrics.
Why she stays, and when you try to explain, you'll say I can't hide myself. I don't expect you to understand. I just hope I can explain what it's like to be a man. It's a lonely road, and they don't care about what you know.
I gotta say, I find it interesting, because a lot of me disagrees with this song in the sense of where I'm at in my life and what I've experienced. Because I'm still so young. I'm about to be 27 in a couple weeks. I'm still so young. You could make an argument that I'm not a man until, I'm getting close to 6 figures, or if I have a family and I'm providing for a family, or I'm married, or you can make an argument when you become a man, right? But the lonely road part, I feel like the reason why I can't necessarily relate or agree with that is because of I've never been alone. I've always had friends, really close friends, and I've never felt alone ever in my life. But, maybe when I'm 40 years old and I'm not with my friends, and I hope that's never true. I hope I don't ever not have friends just because I have a family. But when you are in this position, and a lot of these scenarios that we're seeing in this video, like this guy's in his garage, or no, not this guy. Later in the video, there's a guy just drinking a beer and has a cigarette in his hand, and he's alone in the garage. Like, I feel like fatherhood potentially is a lonely road, where as a man, potentially the only guy in the house, if you have daughters, you do feel alone. You feel secluded from the world, and you're constantly isolated because you're working a lot, or the downtime that you do have, you spend it alone. But yeah, so that's all I meant by saying I don't agree with it, or I can't relate with it, because a lot of this comes down to like your individual self and the people you surround yourself with, and all that good stuff. But like I said, I know plenty of people. Well, actually, I didn't say this yet, but I know plenty of people who do have families, who are older, or even my age, where they're never alone. They're very social still. I'm at the age where everybody's been married and has kids, that if you're friends with people who are in that same situation, your kids are hanging out with their kids. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, it's all interesting to me. This is why I like talking about music, because it's life. We're talking about life at the end of the day, and everybody's life is different. No one's the same. Scenarios might be similar, but no one's exactly the same. Okay, so this dude is in the garage, and he is smoking every centimeter of that cigarette. You need that nicotine if you're puffing that whole motherfucker down to a stinger.
It's not about how you feel, but what you provide inside that home. Don't give up, keep fighting. As a man, our sun is our horizon. And
I fucking love that line. Don't give up, keep fighting. As a man, our sun is our horizon. Like, woo! Love that line. And it's the truth. It is the 100% truth. Like, not everybody wants kids. That's a fact. Whether you're a man or you're a woman, not everybody wants kids. But to those of you who do, myself included, just a matter of, when. you never know. You gotta have things in order first before you can get that far. At least the way I plan on doing things. But as a man, if you have a son, like that is, since I was a young child, because of trauma, I knew very early that one of my biggest goals in life is to have a son and to be the best father I could possibly be. Because that's everything. That is the future, man. That is what is going to be in this life after you're gone. God forbid your child is burying you and you're not the one burying your child. But that's your future, man. You want to mold the best version of yourself into that child, into your son. And that's a beautiful thing. So I really like that line.
Keep fighting. As a man, our son is our horizon. And our father's actions play a role, and we end up like them. So they can't let us see them hurt, because we'll embody what they do and start a generational curse.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about earlier. This is the point where he's referencing that as a son, you're going to embody the traits that your father portrays, right? So if you never see your dad cry, you might just naturally think that, okay, as a man, I shouldn't cry. Or by the time I'm a father, I shouldn't cry. You know, and it's going to start a generational curse, because guess what? Your father probably learned that from his father, and his father learned that from his father, and so. That's why it's a generational curse. And that's why you got to be able to have every form of discussion possible with your children so they can absorb as much knowledge that they can learn from you, and let them know that this is okay to do. You know, be vulnerable, cry, validate your feelings. And then, of course, you got to monitor everything, too. You don't want someone to just be always emotional. You don't want someone to get too deep in their feelings. You don't want someone to just take things personal all the time. You know, there's a moderate dose of everything. And music, for me, did a beautiful thing, allowing me to access things I couldn't access otherwise. Letting those walls down. Those walls were always up. Like the first 20 years of my life, those walls were always up. And it was a struggle. It was a struggle. And we're not going to get into it, but psychedelics too, they'll just beat your ass up and and really get you to know the real you. You'll have 100 conversations with yourself about why you were wrong about so many things. And they'll allow you to be more sensitive. But yeah, so you got to be able to have those talks with your kids, man.
No wonder most men are so depressed. All the things that they can't express. They go to war, get thrown on the shelf, then go back to war with their mental health.
Ooh, okay, so that's, I interpreted that line differently, but also that's why music is beautiful and subjective, because it's not wrong, but the next line kind of clarifies what he was speaking to more directly. So he says, it's a no wonder most men are depressed because of the emotions and the feelings they can't express. They go to war, right? And then they end up on the shelf. And earlier I explained, you know, in memory, rest in peace, where they're just a picture frame because they passed away in war. But in this scenario, with the next line, it's like a tribute, right? It's a tribute for yourself, or like your family has a tribute to you, in the sense that you're still alive, but we're always going to remember what you did for our country and all that beautiful stuff. But now you're sitting here at war with your mental health. PTSD is a big problem. It is so heartbreaking. And, you know, a lot of veterans, it's a struggle for them afterwards. You know, I in my life personally, like, there's more veterans than not that are not doing the greatest. And war affects them in a very crazy way. There are some vets, though, 100%, that are doing fantastic, and being in the military was a beautiful thing. But talking about war specifically, I mean, that's a different conversation than just being in the military. A totally different conversation. But that's one of my favorite lines. I like this part a lot too.
Things that they can't express. They go to war, get thrown on the shelf, then go back to war with their mental health. Then grab that bottle and ask for help. Try to pull themselves out of hell. Then fall back down and then realize that they're gonna have to do it themselves.
Ooh, that's a beautiful line too. Basically turn into the bottle, right? Getting some alcohol in you to to gather strength, right? Like to get some courage, to get pulled out of hell by drinking. And then you got to realize you got to do it yourself. You can't expect something to just change because you ingested a substance, or you know what I mean? Like it's got to be a change from within that can manifest into an external, action. It's got to be something that you got to work towards. It's not as simple as drinking your problems away.
Pull themselves out of hell, then fall back down and then realize that they're gonna have to do it themselves. It's the circle of life. As a man you provide, they don't know what you're worth.
This melody switch right here, I love the flow switch. Like he just immediately, this is like the climax of the song where it's empowering. Like this is the state of empowerment right here. Like I got goosebumps through this song for like sad reasons, and then I also got goosebumps from songs, or from the part of the song where like it's uplifting, like right here. Like when he starts going, it's the circle of life, like that part is beautiful.
Themselves out of hell, then fall back down and then realize that they're gonna have to do it themselves. It's the circle of life. As a man you provide, they don't know what you're worth till the day that you die, and that's when they start crying. Then move on to a man to confide in.
Woo! That shit hurts. The truth hurts. Always has, always will. But yeah, it's not until you're dead people realize what your worth is. And then that's when they start crying, and then they find a man to confide in. But honestly, that's a part of life in terms of dying and then finding love again, trusting another human to, because that's the dangerous part of this life, right? Is coming to terms with those realities. Like, I know my mental approach is, for sure, if I get married and say we're together 20 years and I die, I would want my wife to find love again. And if she doesn't, that's up to her. If she chooses not to, that's totally fine. That is totally fine. But what I would want for her is to be able to find love again. To just be alone and sad after. I mean, I wouldn't want that. I would not want that. I wouldn't want that. I would not want to just be hung up and sad for the rest of my life. But it's not like you're moving on completely. Like I would still be a big part of my wife's life. Like those years spent together, raising kids, having those kids, the memories, like everything. You'd be still a big part. But there's realities. You still need support. You still need help. And that's why every individual situation is different. Like, for all I know, the wife I end up with, she could be the breadwinner. She could be making more money than me. She might not need to confide in another man for support. She's good. Kids are raised, out of the nest, going to college. They have careers. She's making money still on her own. She can take care of herself. There's literally an unlimited amount of scenarios and possibilities on how you would move forward from that. But the biggest takeaway is man or woman, life itself, and even materialistic things. You don't realize what you got till it's gone.
That's why we feel we can't hide ourselves. We don't expect you to understand. We just hope we can explain what it's like to be a man. It's a lonely road, and you don't care about what we know. It's not about how we feel, but what we provide inside that home. Inside that home. It's not about how we feel, but what we provide inside that home. Inside that home.
All right, so that was Dax and his brand new song, To Be a Man. I love this song. I thought it was amazing. I was caught off guard with it entirely, from the song itself to the content to the instrumental to the pacing. His writing was phenomenal. I really enjoy his singing. No complaints from me about this song at all. Very, very surprised with this song, and I enjoyed the fuck out of it. I enjoyed it a lot. And I hope you guys did too. I hope you guys enjoyed this reaction. If you enjoyed the reaction, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already. I'm going to share a link to this video down in the description, as always, and I'm going to share a link to Dax and his channel in the description, as always. Yeah, be on the lookout for daily uploads Monday through Friday. If I don't upload on a day, it's just because I'm busy. I'm going through a lot of stuff right now, a lot of personal stuff. Very unfortunate, but you know, it is what it is. I'm still doing what I can to get uploads. I do have a gaming channel, Alphabyte Gaming. I do make my own music, Alphabyte Music, and you already are here, so you know I have a reaction channel, Alphabyte Reactions. So I'm always trying to do what I can to work on all three of those channels. I love doing all three of those things. I love creating content. I love you guys. Anyway, if you're new around here, you're about to see the outro. Most of y'all already know how we do it around here, though. Until next time, doses.
I kept clenching both my fists and all the anger I had gripping. Then one day I sat and listened. Eminem was on and ripping like he wasn't on a mission to get sober. Had conviction, had some power in his image.